Have you ever noticed how insults don't just sting your ears, they echo in your mind long after the words are gone? Someone mocks you, dismisses you, questions your worth. And even if you smile in the moment, the replay begins. You analyze it. You wonder why they said it. You start to doubt yourself. But what if I told you the insult was never really about you? It's like a mosquito bite, small, superficial, but it itches long after the moment is gone. And the more you scratch it, the more it hurts. That's what insults do. They itch at your ego, your pride, your sense of control. And if you're not mentally trained, even the smallest jab can throw off your entire day. But what if you didn't flinch? What if the insult landed and you felt nothing? No rush of anger, no urge to defend, just calm, stillness, strength. Because while they're throwing words, you have a choice: catch the fire or let it fall. And when you choose silence over reaction, that's when your strength speaks louder than any insult ever could. So, how do you train your mind not just to resist, but to feel nothing? Not out of numbness, but out of mastery. That's what this is about. Stay until the end, because the final shift may just make you untouchable. Let's begin. But before we dive in, pay attention to this story, which will help you better understand the wisdom in this material. The story of Noah, the stone that didn't crack. Noah used to take every insult like a stone to the chest. It didn't matter if it came from a stranger, a co-worker, or someone he loved. If someone questioned him, mocked him, or tossed a sarcastic jab his way, it stuck. He wouldn't show it on his face, but inside, it chipped away at him. He'd replay conversations for days, wondering what he should have said, how he should have defended himself. The pain didn't come from the words. It came from his need to be understood, to prove himself, to not look weak. That changed the day he visited his grandfather, a quiet man who lived alone near the mountains. Noah had come to escape a difficult week. At work, a colleague had embarrassed him in front of the entire team. "If you actually knew what you were doing," the man had said with a smirk, "we wouldn't be behind schedule." No one stood up for him. No one said a word. Noah laughed it off at the time, but the moment haunted him. "Why does it still bother me?" he asked his grandfather. The old man didn't respond right away. He simply got up, pointed to a worn wooden bench under an old tree, and said, "Sit there. I want to show you something." Minutes later, he returned with a rusty metal bowl filled with cold water and a smooth stone. He dropped the stone into the bowl. It sank with a soft plunk. "This," he said, "is what you're doing." Noah looked confused. "You let every word, every insult enter you. You absorb it, hold it, let it sink. That's why it stays." He then poured the same water over the top of another stone resting on the ground. The water rolled off. Nothing entered. Nothing stuck. "And this," his grandfather said, "is what you must become." Noah stared at the stone, silent. His grandfather continued, "People's words don't define you. They reveal them. Some speak from pain, some from jealousy, and some just want a reaction. If you react, you give them power. But if you stay still, calm, indifferent, they lose their grip." Noah didn't argue. He just sat with those words, and something shifted. Over time, he stopped flinching at disrespect. He stopped trying to change what people believed. He stopped needing to respond to everything said about him. He built a mind that didn't absorb, didn't defend, didn't crack. Not because he was numb, but because he had trained himself to understand the difference between what mattered and what didn't. When someone insulted him now, he didn't carry it home. He didn't carry it at all. He let it slide like water off a stone. Because true strength isn't loud. It's quiet, still, and completely unshaken. Before we begin with the first lesson, if you find these videos helpful, I encourage you to subscribe and turn on notifications to stay updated on the latest content. Let's begin. Number 1. Understand that an insult says more about them than you. Let's talk about something most people take far too personally: insults. A rude comment, a dismissive tone, a sarcastic jab. It stings, doesn't it? Even when we tell ourselves to brush it off, it lingers. But here's the truth you need to hold on to. When someone insults you, they're not revealing who you are. They're revealing who they are. Their words aren't a reflection of your worth. They're a projection of their own insecurity, jealousy, or unresolved pain. What they say in a moment of cruelty says far more about their inner chaos than your identity. Here's the real shift in mindset. Insults are rarely about truth. They're about power. The person insulting you wants to see you flinch. They want to knock you off balance, get under your skin, control your emotions. Because if they can make you react, they win. But when you don't react, when you remain steady, silent, grounded, they lose that power instantly. A Stoic knows this. That's why the Stoic response to an insult isn't retaliation. It's detachment. This is where Marcus Aurelius gives us clarity. He said, "When another blames you or hates you, look into his soul and see what kind of man he is. You'll realize it's nothing to take personally." In other words, look deeper. Ask yourself, what kind of place must someone be in to throw insults instead of extending understanding? What kind of pain must they be carrying to lash out at others just to feel seen? A Stoic doesn't respond to insults with emotion. He responds with insight. Let me share a story. A guy I know, let's call him Tyler, was publicly insulted during a meeting. One of his co-workers, clearly irritated, said something like, "Maybe if Tyler actually paid attention, we'd be done by now." The room went quiet. Everyone turned to see how Tyler would react. But Tyler didn't flinch. He didn't defend himself, didn't retaliate. He calmly nodded and continued with his notes. Later, someone asked him why he didn't say anything. Tyler smiled and said, "Why would I let his outburst become my burden? That wasn't about me." And he was right. That co-worker had been under pressure for weeks, lashing out at anyone who threatened his ego. Tyler saw through the insult and refused to let it stick. So how do you train your mind to feel nothing in the face of insults? First, observe the source. Ask yourself what that person's words reveal about their character, not your value. Second, don't personalize it. Not every comment deserves to land. Third, remind yourself, your peace isn't up for negotiation. At the end of the day, a person who insults you is showing you the limits of their own maturity, not the truth of your identity. Don't carry their chaos. Let it pass through you, because when you stop absorbing the bitterness of others, you start mastering the stillness within yourself. Number 2. Practice the art of indifference. Let's talk about one of the most powerful skills you can develop if you want to train your mind to feel nothing in the face of insults: indifference. And no, indifference doesn't mean apathy. It doesn't mean you stop caring about life or that you become numb to everything around you. What it truly means is this: you learn to choose what deserves your emotional energy and what doesn't. You don't let every comment, every insult, every look drag you into a mental storm, because truthfully, most of it, it's not worth catching. Here's the truth. Just because someone throws fire doesn't mean you have to catch it. People will say things. They'll project their frustrations, their fears, their insecurities. And if you react to every single one of them, you're handing over your peace on a silver platter. That's not power. That's surrender. The Stoic doesn't surrender their peace like that. They pause, they evaluate, and most importantly, they let go of anything that doesn't serve their highest state of mind. This is where Epictetus gives us the key. He said, "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them." Think about that. An insult is just noise, words in the air, until we decide to give it meaning. Until we grab it, hold on to it, turn it over in our mind 100 times. That's when it starts to hurt. But when you practice indifference, you step outside of that. You see the insult, but you don't invite it in. You hear the tone, but you don't take it personally. You train your mind to respond with silence, stillness, and power. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Brian, used to take everything to heart. If someone made a rude remark in a meeting, he'd replay it in his head for days. If someone criticized his work, even unfairly, he'd obsess over it. But then he started practicing Stoicism. One day, someone made a sarcastic joke about him in front of a group. Brian felt the old reaction rise, but he caught himself. He took a deep breath, looked at the person calmly, and said nothing, just a slight smile. The moment passed, and for the first time, he felt what real power feels like, not from clapping back, but from not needing to. So how do you develop this kind of indifference? First, pause. When someone insults you, don't respond right away. Let it pass through you. Second, ask yourself, does this deserve space in my mind? Most of the time, the answer will be no. Third, remind yourself that your peace is too expensive to spend on something so cheap. At the end of the day, indifference isn't weakness, it's mastery. When you learn to observe without absorbing, you rise above the noise. You don't just avoid being hurt, you become untouchable. And that, in the face of insults, is the mark of a truly trained mind. If you've watched the video this far, don't forget to leave a comment with a "thank God" and give it a like if you enjoyed the content. Your support means a lot and motivates me to keep creating more interesting videos. I hope you find inspiration in them and that we continue learning together. Thank you for your support. Number 3. Master your emotional first response. Let's talk about one of the most powerful tactics to train your mind to feel nothing in the face of insults. Mastering your emotional first response. Because that first moment, those first few seconds after someone throws an insult your way, are everything. That's when the decision is made. Either you react and the insult controls you, or you pause and you remain in control. Most people never train this. They assume that reacting is automatic. But the Stoic sees insult not as a wound, but as a test, and the very first move you make. That's the difference between being ruled by others and being ruled by yourself. The truth is, insults are built to provoke. They aim straight at the emotion. They want to get under your skin, pull you into a reaction, a defense, an argument. But when you pause, when you breathe, when you say nothing, you break that cycle. You become unpredictable. You turn the moment into your own. Because silence in the face of insult isn't weakness. It's discipline. It's the mind refusing to give power to something beneath it. Seneca once said, "A man is not hurt so much by what happens as by his opinion of what happens." And that opinion is formed in the very first response. React with anger, and the insult wins. React with clarity or not at all, and you win. It's not about ignoring disrespect. It's about refusing to let it shape who you are. Let me tell you a story. A man I know, let's call him Kevin, was working a leadership role at a logistics firm. One day, during a heated budget review, a junior executive tried to embarrass him in front of the board, made a snide comment about his past decisions. All eyes turned to Kevin. He looked up, he nodded, and he said nothing. No defense, no justification, just a calm, grounded silence. That moment shifted everything, not because he won the argument, but because he never entered it. After the meeting, one of the senior board members pulled him aside and said, "That was the most powerful response I've seen all week." Kevin smiled and replied, "Sometimes the best response is no response at all." So how do you master your emotional first response? First, train the pause. Create space between the trigger and the reaction. Second, remember that silence is strength. You don't need to defend what's already beneath you. And third, reflect afterward, not to dwell, but to sharpen. Every insult is another rep in the gym of mental discipline. At the end of the day, to train your mind to feel nothing in the face of insults means learning to pause while others push. Reacting is easy, but holding your center, that's power. And once you master that first moment, the rest becomes quiet. Stoic, unshakable. Number 4. Fortify your identity from within. Let's talk about one of the deepest and most unshakable foundations you need if you want to train your mind to feel nothing in the face of insults: fortifying your identity from within. Because here's what most people don't realize. Insults only land when they touch something unhealed. They only hurt when there's a question mark inside you about who you are. But when you've built your self-concept on solid ground, when you've done the work, when you know who you are, what you value, what you stand for, then no one's words can reach deep enough to shake you. The insult may come, but it finds no place to live. Here's the truth. People will always have opinions. Some will misunderstand you, others will envy you, and a few hurt people will try to tear you down to feel tall. But the Stoic doesn't build identity on public approval. He builds it from within. He knows his worth doesn't rise and fall with other people's reactions. He understands that identity is a choice, a set of values, behaviors, and truths that you return to regardless of noise. As Seneca said, "You are your choices, not your critics, not your praise. Your choices." I knew a woman, let's call her Rachel, who once worked in a hyper-competitive corporate environment. She was smart, grounded, and consistent. And because of that, she was constantly targeted with passive insults. People called her too intense, too serious, or whispered that she was trying too hard. Years ago, it would have shaken her. She would have overcorrected, played smaller just to fit in, but not anymore. Rachel had spent the last few years defining herself, writing down her values, her goals, her code of conduct. She lived by it. And because she knew exactly who she was, none of the noise around her stuck. When the insults came, she didn't flinch. She didn't need applause to validate her, and she definitely didn't let criticism derail her. That kind of peace, it's built from the inside out. So how do you fortify your identity from within? First, get clear. What do you believe in? What values define you when no one is watching? Second, live those values daily. That repetition builds trust, not just with others, but with yourself. Third, detach your worth from reaction. Whether they love you or misunderstand you, neither defines you. Your essence is rooted in something deeper. At the end of the day, insults are noise. They only grow if you let them echo inside an empty chamber. But when your identity is full, grounded in self-respect, purpose, and choice, there's no room for someone else's chaos. That's how you train your mind to feel nothing, not through arrogance, but through alignment. Through living so honestly that no lie, no insult, no judgment can shake your truth. If you found this valuable, hit like and subscribe for more powerful insights. Number 5. Don't fight fire with fire. Let's talk about one of the most misunderstood disciplines when learning to train your mind to feel nothing in the face of insults, the strength to not retaliate. Because the moment someone disrespects you, your instinct might scream, "Fire back, match their energy, show them you won't be walked over." But here's what that really does. It puts you on the same low ground they're standing on. And when you stoop down to meet their energy, you lose the one thing that sets you apart, your composure. Insults are traps, not physical ones, but emotional ones. They are designed to pull you out of character, to make you act out of emotion, to strip you of your peace. And when you respond with another insult, you've already lost something. You've given them control, because now your state is dictated by their words. Your dignity is reacting to their pettiness. Your calm is shaken by their chaos. That's not power. That's surrender in disguise. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." Let that settle in. He didn't say to correct them. He didn't say to get even. He said the most powerful move is to rise above, to stay yourself. Because when someone stoops low and you stay high, you expose the gap between their character and yours. And that contrast, that's more impactful than any insult you could throw back. Let me tell you a story. A man I know, let's call him David, ran a small business. One of his competitors began spreading false rumors about him, trying to tarnish his reputation. Friends and family urged David to respond publicly, to call the guy out, to match fire with fire. But David didn't. He stayed quiet, focused on his work, continued serving his customers. A few months later, that same competitor got caught in a scandal, and everything he said about David lost credibility. Not because David fought back, but because David refused to sink. His silence became his defense. His restraint became his reputation, and the world noticed. So how do you avoid fighting fire with fire? First, pause. Just because someone tries to drag you down doesn't mean you owe them a reaction. Second, ask yourself, will this matter in a week, a month, a year? Most insults don't pass that test. And third, let your silence carry your message. There's power in not responding, in not being shaken, in staying centered while someone else unravels. At the end of the day, responding with insult makes you part of the noise, but choosing peace, that makes you stand out, not because you're weak, but because you're wise. Detachment isn't apathy, it's power. And the day you stop fighting fire with fire is the day you start burning brighter than anything thrown your way. Number 6. Train daily through mental rehearsal. Let's talk about one of the most overlooked but powerful strategies to train your mind to feel nothing in the face of insults: daily mental rehearsal. Because no matter how wise you are, no matter how composed you try to be, the moment of insult still stings, unless you've already prepared for it. The Stoics didn't wait for adversity to show up. They rehearsed it. They practiced in their minds how they would respond. Calm, centered, unbothered. And that practice, that's what made them resilient when the real moment came. The truth is, your brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality, which means every time you mentally rehearse staying calm during a confrontation or visualizing yourself unfazed by someone's judgment, your nervous system adapts. You're rewiring your reflexes before life even throws the blow, and that's the difference between reacting and being ready. Seneca said, "He who fears death will never do anything worthy of a living man." But it's not just death we fear, it's judgment, rejection, humiliation, and those fears keep us reactive. But when you mentally rehearse the difficult moments, you strip the fear of its power. You turn the unknown into the familiar. You stop being surprised and start being prepared. Let me give you a real-world example. A guy I know, let's call him Brandon, used to freeze any time someone criticized him in public. In meetings, if someone challenged his ideas or mocked a suggestion, he'd spiral for days. He tried affirmations, breathing exercises, even confrontation, but nothing helped long-term. Then one day, on the advice of a mentor, he started a new ritual. Every morning, for just 5 minutes, he'd close his eyes and picture someone insulting him. Not a vague insult, a specific, cutting remark. And then he'd visualize his response. Steady breath, slow blink, a composed nod, maybe even a quiet smile. No words, just calm. He did it every single day, and over time, something strange happened. He stopped being afraid, because he'd seen it all before. His body didn't panic, his mind didn't race, and when the moment came again, and it always does, he was unshaken. Not because it didn't hurt, but because it no longer controlled him. So how do you train your mind through mental rehearsal? Start small. Picture the exact words that might trigger you, then visualize your stillness. See the tension rise, and then see yourself choosing peace. Do it daily, quietly, intentionally, because mental strength isn't built in the storm, it's built before it arrives. At the end of the day, emotional mastery doesn't happen by chance, it happens by training. And if you can rehearse your calm before the insult lands, you won't just survive the moment, you'll own it. That's Stoic power. That's freedom. Number 7, let time prove you right. Let's talk about one of the most powerful long-term lessons you must embrace if you truly want to train your mind to feel nothing in the face of insults, learning to let time speak for you. Because in the heat of the moment, insults feel urgent. They demand a reaction, a defense, a comeback. But reacting immediately isn't always strength. Sometimes, real strength is staying silent and letting your life speak louder than your words ever could. Here's the truth. Not everyone will see you clearly, especially in the moment. Some will misunderstand you, mock you, twist your intentions, or throw labels on you that have nothing to do with who you really are. And when that happens, your ego wants to step in. It wants to defend your name, correct the narrative, protect your pride. But the Stoic path, it's different. The Stoic understands that time is the ultimate revealer. As Seneca said, time discovers truth. When you don't react to an insult, people might think you're weak. When you stay calm, they might think you don't care. When you choose silence over retaliation, they might believe you've accepted defeat. But let them think what they want, because the wise know that appearances are temporary, but character always surfaces. And over time, the truth always finds its way to the surface, without your help. Let me tell you about someone. His name is Marcus. A few years ago, Marcus was passed over for a leadership position at his company. Rumors swirled. Colleagues whispered that he wasn't ready, that he didn't have the edge. Some even said he lacked the presence to lead. It stung. But Marcus didn't argue. He didn't campaign. He didn't try to convince anyone. Instead, he kept working. He kept showing up early, mentoring quietly, solving problems without needing applause. And slowly, people noticed. One by one, their opinions shifted. Not because Marcus tried to change them, but because he let his work do the talking. A year later, when the same position reopened, there wasn't even a debate. Marcus got the role. And every person who once doubted him had to watch the truth unfold. So how do you train your mind to let time prove you right? First, pause when you feel that emotional itch to defend. Ask yourself, will this even matter in 6 months? Second, remind yourself that time filters noise. Most insults fade into irrelevance. But your integrity, that stays. And third, stay consistent. Because when your actions keep aligning with your values, even your enemies begin to respect you, even if they never say it out loud. At the end of the day, the insult might sting now, but don't trade your peace for a moment of ego. Let your calm be your shield and your actions be your proof. Because when all is said and done, time will speak for you, and its voice is louder than any insult ever thrown your way. If you believe this video can help others, give it a like. It helps the YouTube algorithm show it to more people. And don't forget to subscribe for more awesome content coming your way. Share your thoughts in the comments. I will definitely reply.